Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's wonderful to connect with all of you. My name is Maria, and I'm a Senior Associate Director here at the Yale School of Management. We hope that this session will help you learn more about the Silva Scholars Program, mainly through the experiences and perspectives of our panelists. We also hope to answer at least most of your questions. I know that you have a lot of questions for us here today. But I would really like to encourage you to direct your question to the panelists and really ask about their experiences in the Silva Scholars Program. They have lived through that experience or are currently living the experience for those that are currently on campus. In admissions, we run lots of other events that focus on the application process, the evaluation process, specifically how the admissions committee looks at and evaluates applications. So there are tons of other events where we can really focus on what it takes to put together a strong application for the Silva Scholars Program. So I would just like to encourage you to take full advantage of the panelists today and really direct your questions to them. My colleague Diana is also here with us today behind the scenes. She's closely monitoring the Q&A, so I'd like to encourage you to begin submitting questions. She will be answering some of them immediately and forwarding some of those to us to discuss as a panel. Now, I would like to begin with just a brief overview of the Silva Scholars Program. I am sure that some of you have already done some research, maybe looked at the website, read a student blog, looked at our brochure, connected with the current students. So I know you already have some information about the Silva Scholars Program, but I'd like to point out a few of its more distinctive features and what makes the Silva Scholars Program unique. For those of you that have already looked at business schools that accept applications from college seniors, I'm sure that you have noticed that the vast majority of those business programs accept applications from college seniors with the expectation that you work for a few years before enrolling their full-time MBA program, right? Which is why they're called 2+2 or deferment programs. The Silva Scholars Program is unique in this way. We accept you into the program and we expect you to enroll and begin the MBA program immediately upon completing your undergraduate studies. Now, I want to emphasize that the Silva Scholars Program is still the exact same 2-year full-time in-residence MBA program that all of our students complete. The only difference is that young professionals that join the program with at least 2 years of full-time work experience complete a summer internship between the first and the second year of the program, and Silva Scholars, because they come straight out of college, they complete the first year of the MBA program, and then they go on what we call an extended internship, which essentially means working full-time for a year, after which they return to campus and finish the MBA program. What we've seen recently is that increasingly more and more Silva Scholars are choosing to work for longer than a year. Some of our panelists have chosen to do that. I'm sure they'll talk more about that. For now, I just want to emphasize that the school is actually very, very flexible about how you want to spend your internship year, obviously at the company, in the industry and geography of your choice. But also you can split that internship year, especially for those maybe interested in a global career, can spend 6 months in the US and 6 months abroad, maybe in Europe or Asia. And some of them are choosing to work for 2-3 years before they return to campus, not necessarily at the same company, the same function, and in the same geography, right? What I also wanted to note is that we welcome students from all academic majors. We really truly don't have a preference for, let's say, the quant-heavy majors such as business, accounting, finance, statistics, etc., over the humanities, social sciences, physical sciences, engineering, etc. Everyone has an equal chance of being admitted to the Silva Scholars Program. And what I always like to emphasize is that every year the Silva Scholars that start the program, almost every single one of them comes in from a different academic background. So I actually have the list of majors of the Silva Scholars that started the program this fall, and I'll just read it out quickly so you can really get a sense of the academic diversity in the class. Here they are. accounting, business administration, cognitive science, economics, English language and literature, finance, human and organizational development, international political economy, Japanese language and literature, management, managerial economics, mathematics, mechanical engineering, computational science, public health, sociology, statistics. Okay, so again, that gives you a sense that we really truly value the academic diversity that the Silva Scholars bring into the MBA community. Similarly, we welcome candidates from all different professional experiences, right? No two resumes look alike. Again, we don't have a preference for those that have interned with bigger multinational companies over students that are more entrepreneurial or have worked for the family company or have spent time doing research or lab work at school on campus with a professor, etc. And finally, I wanted to bring your attention to the joint degree programs. We have 10 of those. One is with another program at the Yale School of Management. It's the Master's in Asset Management. You can combine it with the Silva Scholars program, or as a Silva Scholar, you can pursue any of the other 9 joint degree programs across Yale University, Masters, JD, MD, PhDs, etc., etc. So if you have questions about those, I'm happy to talk about that as well. So I think that's all I kind of wanted to say to set the scene for our conversation today. So at this point, I'll ask everyone to introduce themselves, and just for expediency, I'll call out your name so you don't all jump in at the same time. For a start, I would like to ask you for a very, very brief introduction because I have lots of follow-up questions for you. If you can just tell us where you're from, where you studied, and what your academic major was, and where in the program are you currently? Are you a student? Are you an alum? And if you're an alum, which year? I'll start with Ashna because she's closest to me.
Fantastic. I guess I'll kick it off. Hi, Ashna Mehra, graduated from Princeton in 2015, was a mechanical engineer during that time. Came into the Silva Scholars program in 2016, did a year of gap year, and then graduated from SOM in 2019. And yeah, I think that covered it all.
Perfect.
Right, Maria?
Thank you. Perfect. Lucas?
Yeah, hi. Lucas, obviously, I'm from Germany originally, but I haven't lived in Germany for the last 10 years and studied my bachelor's in the UK at Warwick in econ, philosophy and politics. And then actually I did a master's in between. So you can join the Silva Scholar program from a master's as well at UPenn in behavioral sciences. And I'm in my gap right now, and I'm in my second year of the gap between the 2 years.
Perfect. Thank you, Lucas. Mohammed?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Mohammed Abel. I'm from Kuwait. I studied at the American University in Washington, D.C., and I majored in finance and marketing. I am actually an alumni of the Silva Scholars program. I started in fall of 2014. Took 3 years out during the very extended internship, and came back and graduated with Ashna actually in the class of 19.
Perfect. Thank you, Mohammed. Arpit?
Hey everyone, my name is Arpit, originally from India. I'm currently a second year, so I took 1 year of gap, joined with Lucas in 2019, and I'm expected to graduate in 2022. I did my undergrad at IIT Bombay in India and majored in electrical engineering.
Perfect. Thank you. Hannah?
Hey everyone, my name is Hannah and I am in the second year right now. So I'm actually at the SOM building right now, finishing up some other work. I started actually with Ashna and I do miss her very dearly, and I ended up taking 4 years of gap, which is definitely unusual, but had some really cool opportunities in between. And so I am, knock on wood, going to graduate for real this time in May 2022. And and my undergrad was University of Georgia, Go Dogs.
Perfect. Thank you. And Dan?
Hey everybody, I'm Dan. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I studied at Haverford College in right outside of Philadelphia. I studied urban studies. I took 2 years of gap, and I graduated from the Silva Scholars Program in 2016.
Great, thank you, Dan. Great. So next, and I wanted to really set this aside as a separate question. I wanted to ask about your motivation to pursue the Silva Scholars Program, obviously to pursue an MBA immediately upon completing your undergraduate studies. Somebody in the audience asked, how did your internship experiences impact your decision to pursue an MBA? And I just kind of wanted to ask each one of you to take us to your thought process, because I'm sure we have many college students, I think the vast majority are seniors, but some are juniors, that are thinking about a lot of different options for life after graduation, right? The graduate school, an MBA, fellowships, jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So I would like to start with Dan, if you don't mind. And then you graduated from a liberal arts college. So maybe you can contextualize a little bit your decision within, that specific academic experience.
Absolutely. Thanks, Maria. So hey, everybody again. Dan, I went to Haverford College. It's a small Quaker liberal arts school. And for me, I've always considered a number of different career paths. I think for the majority of my undergrad experience, I was actually considering law and policy. But I, came across the Silva Scholars Program my junior year. And I think what really stood out to me is that, the Silva Scholars Program and the SOM MBA is exceptionally interdisciplinary, so that, if I did want to work in policy, or if I wanted to, optimize for optionality, this degree would basically allow me to do exactly that. And so, my previous internships were in the federal government. Additionally, I've been a social entrepreneur and really loved kind of working with startups. And so for me, it was kind of trying to leverage my time during my first year, during my internships and so forth, to really understand, of my many interests, what was particularly the one that I wanted to pursue for the long term. And through the integrated core classes, electives, and just talking with lots of alumni as well as current students, I was really able to kind of identify that I wanted to pursue product and product management and entrepreneurship. And I think that coming from the liberal arts, I learned a lot about writing and kind of structured thinking, but I lacked those practical skills, those job skills, that academic scholarship and business education. And so I was able to develop my toolkit that would really prepare me to being a product manager, and think that again, the Silva Scholars Program was the best decision that I've ever made. Thank you,
Dan. Mohammed, I would like to go to you next, because when you introduced yourself, you have perhaps what most closely comes to the traditional major for an MBA program. So can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to enter the Silva Scholars Program immediately after graduation from college?
Yeah, of course. So it's, I've been giving this question a bit of thought. It's a bit hard to recall back in that time what was going through the mind exactly. But I remember going through the university program, and even before that in high school, I was very interested in entrepreneurship and wanted to do a lot of efforts during that. And we had started the social entrepreneurship with family members, and we had a small startup growing up as well. And so it was always a passion of mine to continue building on that entrepreneurial spirit and maybe take those initiatives a bit forward. Studying at undergrad, I did take on some internships at structured companies, investment banks, and other kinds of things. But it kind of confirmed to me that this was not the place for me, and instead I wanted to pursue my entrepreneurial passions. And when I found the SOM program, it was actually a bit on accident. So I was looking through what I would do next. I was graduating a semester early from college, and I wasn't yet through with studying in the US, so I felt I needed a little bit more time there. And reading through the program, I just couldn't believe the opportunity it provided. You know, as you started, Maria, it's an entirely unique program that allows you a year to kind of structure yourself amongst some of the top talent in the world, some of the best students in caliber studying around you and seeing all the different types of opportunities available, and then kind of set you free for a year to go figure out what you'd like to do. And I think that was the biggest draw for me, and it's the thing that made me apply and really extremely invested in joining the Silva Scholars Program. And as Daniel said, it's been one of the best decisions of my life, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Mohammed. So I'd like to go to Arpit and Ashna next, because again, you came into the program as engineers. We actually receive a fair number of applications from engineers, and we accept a fair number of them, generally in the MBA class, but specifically in the Silva Scholars Program. But when I connect with them during recruitment events, one-on-one, there's always sort of the apprehension about, oh, is this a good program for me? They're thinking about other master's programs that are perhaps more technical, more subject specific, right? Perhaps even PhDs. So can you tell us a little bit about your decisions, Ashna? Maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Maria, you kind of actually touched on, the dilemma I was in, as a senior in college. I was a mechanical engineer. I'd been working in a lab for close to about 18 months at that point, did a senior thesis, under my professor, and was debating going and getting a PhD. And realized during my period working in lab that I like being around people too much, and I like sort of a results-oriented environment. And I think both of those things are just a little bit hard to come by when it's a purely research-based setup. And so I think Silva Scholars kind of presented this really, really interesting alternative for me, and a very interesting complement to my skills at that point, right? Because I think when you, as an engineer, you're technically sound, you understand numbers, but again, it is a much narrower skill set is how I would describe it. And I think I needed some more breadth, in terms of what my knowledge was and what I understood. And so that's kind of what attracted me to Silva Scholars. And, I think Mohammed and Dan have already kind of touched upon this, but, the ability to come in for a year and sort of in this structured environment through the core curriculum, get exposed to different parts of business, right? I think very naturally gravitated towards finance. And I think my engineering background has a lot to do with that, because it's just like I gravitated towards numbers quite naturally. But, I think people, who've come in as engineers have, gone into product management, have gone into consulting, have gone, into finance like myself. And so it's, again, echoing some of what has been said already, but, arguably one of the best decisions I've ever made. Just the flexibility offered by the program has been incredible. And I actually got my, first job in my intervening internship from an SOM alum who totally, took a bet on me and kind of initiated me into renewable energy finance. So, I owe Yale SOM one or a lot.
Awesome, thank you. And Arpit?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what Ashna said. For me, I've always been interested in products and how products are developed. So when I was in college, I was part of a startup that did product development inside that, but I felt that I had the technical knowledge that was required, but in order for a product to be commercialized, there was a gap in my education, given that I had a very technical background as an engineer. So for me, essentially, the Silva Scholars Program was a way to answer the question about where I want to be and what do I need to get there. And that gap, which was basically business acumen, strategic thinking, was essentially going to be answered for me by joining the program. So for me, that was the rationale that I had.
Great, thank you. Hannah, I'll go to you next. You graduated early, in less than 4 years. You graduated in December of your senior year, and you started working for a little bit before coming to SOM. So tell us a little bit about when you made that decision in that last semester of your senior year. Were you thinking about it already earlier on?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like my reasons might be a little more commercial than a lot of, like everyone's saying, I wanted to pursue my interests. I had the reasons that I originally applied, and then I've had wonderful discoveries that I've been able to make during the program. Frankly, my reason for applying originally was to get a career boost, because having, coming from a state school, so I was, state school, God bless their football team, but, it doesn't have the name of Yale. By going in that first year, even though you don't finish the MBA, the companies that will talk to you is very different. I had companies who would not have previously really looked at an application at least say, oh, I'll have a conversation, because you have VL name and you get a great network as well, like Ashna was saying. And so my initial reason was very much focused on getting that career boost. I frankly wasn't really interested in, being an analyst for 2 to 3 years and only then being able to take on more responsibility in whatever job I was in at the time. And the Silver Scholar program really allowed me to skip that. And that was really proven to me when the job, I ended up becoming a product manager over at Citi. And I was, 7 or 8 years younger than everyone else of my rank. So it was an incredible opportunity to get that boost, and it really worked. Having come back in the second year, though, what I have now realized is even better than I had anticipated with this structure is that you have this opportunity when you go in, like, yes, we're all very smart and we can all work very hard, but let's be honest, we do have some maturing to do as people in that first year. And one of the great things that the gap period allows you to do is give more thought, and you get more experience in what you do and do not want to pursue. And so one of the really cool things is that you can come back, have a much better idea of who you are as a person, and then pursue classes like Daniel was saying that are across the entire university. So whatever you need. So a really cool thing that I've discovered is I might be much more interested in entrepreneurial pursuits than I had previously thought. I now have that opportunity because I've taken the time in the gap period to figure that out. I can now come back and take classes both at SOM as well as across the whole university to be much more satisfied with my own career, whatever that ends up being. So definitely when I came in, it was the career boost, which worked out great. And it got an incredible boost. But now I'm also getting the advantage of coming back as a different person and being able to expose myself to subjects and classes which I had previously either not been aware of or had no interest in, and which now are honestly some of the most exciting things that I've ever encountered, because I think it can give me incredible opportunities to find a career that I really, really enjoy post-graduation.
Yeah, great, Hannah. Nothing wrong with a career boost. We actually talk about this all the time, that one of the purposes of the Silva Scholars program is to help you accelerate your career, right? To propel you forward and help you get there much faster than you would have if you had sort of followed the traditional track of graduating from college, getting a job for 2 to 3 years, and then pursuing an MBA program. So last but not least, Lucas, you mentioned in your introduction that you came with a master's degree, and thank you for pointing out that in a master's program, you're absolutely eligible to apply to the Silva Scholars program. Some of our audience members actually asked that question. So I just wanted to clarify that there's no problem with eligibility. Some students are in a sort of an integrated bachelor's master's program that lasts 5 to 6 years, absolutely eligible to apply to the Silva Scholars program, as long as they have not taken time between their undergraduate and graduate studies to work full time. Because if you have, and you've worked for 2 to 3 years, then you can just apply to the regular MBA program.
Yeah, thank you. I think I was trying to think back when I was applying, and so I remember how much when you prepare for your MBA applications, people say, "Oh yeah, you need your sort of, how do you say, the sort of a nice story to your CV, right? There needs to be some red threads going through it." And I thought so long and hard about how I could make any sensible story out of what I did, because it was just all over the place. So my internships were in politics, in the European Parliament, then like NGOs, a bit of finance, in an industrial company. Just because I always took internships as, I really want to try out different sectors, and I didn't really know what I want to do, but I was just, want to try out different sectors. And then landed on social entrepreneurship in the end, because, I had this societal focus and I want to, but I was a bit frustrated with the NGO world, etc. Tried to found something, failed very quickly twice, and then was at the point where, okay, maybe learning a little bit about business is not bad before you try to start something. And then, at that point I was in my master's, and a lot of people told me, okay, do your, you 2-3 years of McKinsey, Bain, BCG, that's gonna be your prep. So I actually did apply, and I got one offer in the end. and then had this offer in my hand and said, that's actually really not what I want to do. I mean, it's all fine with those, but I don't want to be a consultant. Mostly because I thought, well, I do want to have that more holistic perspective while learning about how to run a business. And that's how I even sort of started having the thought, maybe an MBA makes sense, because there you're still in an academic context, you have people from different perspectives, and you can have those critical conversations about also the frameworks and the things you learn. At the same time, I was at UPenn, so I had a lot of classes in Wharton, and that actually, I mean, I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to throw shame on Wharton, but I guess I can. And that really put me off. I thought that's not my crowd. I was only in the do-gooders classes, social entrepreneurship, impact investing, etc. And it was elbows out. People were giving you wrong information about upcoming tests to push you down on the curve and stuff like that. And it's like okay, that's not for me. And then I came across Yale, and all business schools say they're nice, and we're nice communities, etc. And then visited, and then sort of got a bit of a feeling, okay, maybe that actually has a different atmosphere, and maybe there's something true about this idea of interdisciplinarity, and we care about the society, etc. Yeah, but I mean that's how I got there. And I think in the end it was really the campus visit where I thought, okay, I kind of like this. People are nice. It seems to be people help each other, yeah. So in the end, it was kind of a back and forth, but in the end, it was the idea of being at a place where I can learn some hard business skills in a place where you have people from all kinds of different backgrounds, and you have the SOM focus on societal issues and interdisciplinarity. It was very much a gut feeling in the end.
Great, perfect. Thank you, Lucas. And first, thank you for pointing out something about your resume that you felt like you had so many diverse experiences that you couldn't even weave a coherent narrative to kind of make your case for why an MBA, why now, why SOM, right? And this is something I hear as a concern from prospective applicants. They think that everything has to speak to a particular interest or passion that they want to pursue in business school. And that's not the case. We don't expect that from undergraduates. In fact, it's always a good thing to see that you've had different experiences, you've learned from them, you've figured out what you like, what you don't like, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. Because at the end of the day, we want you to come into the program having an idea of what which professional path you want to pursue. So we definitely don't expect if you want to pursue iBanking to have every single internship in finance. That is definitely not an expectation from the admissions committee. And secondly, you seamlessly transition into my next question. We're getting questions about the Yale SOM community, the culture at SOM. In the interest of time, maybe I can ask just a couple of you to comment on that because time is just flying by. So if you can just tell us, and I know, Lucas, you touched on that you were able to visit campus before enrolling in the program. What other context did you have with community members? Did you reach out to current, Silva scholars, connect with professors, etc.? To sort of gain more knowledge about what the place is like, who the people are, and how you potentially feel there as a student and as a member of that community.
So targeted me?
Anyone, maybe if a couple of you can just speak up to that. Yeah. Ashna, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I can kind of, take that question initially, but I think one word, honestly, and Barry loves this word, it's called co-opetition, right? I think that kind of describes Yale, right? I mean, I think I went through banking recruitment, and I think this is speaking a little bit to what Lucas was talking about, there is this kind of assumption of business school that there'll be sharp elbows. In banking, everybody was told, hey, you're one person. If you get 5 offers, you're not going to go to 5 different banks. So you know what? Help yourself, but also help your friends around you, because each of you is going to end up at different banks. And if the entire school benefits, your network benefits, just everybody does well together, right? So I think there's absolutely that competitive aspect of it, but there's a huge cooperative aspect to it as well, which is why I kind of use the word cooperation. I think the other thing is, all the buzzwords we see today about impact and social entrepreneurship and caring about the environment, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's in Yale's DNA. I think it's in SOM's DNA, and it's just so crucial to the identity of the school, which is incredible in my opinion. I think a lot of business schools are trying to pivot to that, to sort of market themselves to, again, like a lot of business schools are seeing the writing on the wall of like, does an MBA even make sense for people to get versus not, right? But Yale just kind of has done that very naturally. Like that's been its niche, since the inception of the school. And so I think those are two things that I would urge like all applicants to kind of keep in mind, that that's kind of what describes the place to me.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mohammed.
Just to add to Ashna's point, I think Yale, its culture is quite genuine. It doesn't try to be anything that it's not. It doesn't try to. It's just naturally a very, very cooperative and as well very engaging place, mainly because its student body is so diverse. The backgrounds, just seeing the backgrounds on this panel, the backgrounds you mentioned in the SOM program, the Silva Scholars Program specifically, but in SOM in general, I met people from all kinds of interests and all kinds of backgrounds at Yale. And the more beautiful thing about that was that we were such a small class. I'm actually not sure what the class size has gotten to now. It was around 350 at the time I was there. And even though that seems like a large number, I remember walking the halls knowing everyone by name and everyone knowing me by name. There was not a stranger in the building. It was a wonderful, wonderful place to be. Sure.
Great, thank you. So next, I wanted to ask each one of you to briefly talk about your extended internship and what that looks like or looked like, and maybe if you are an alum, where you're currently working, and maybe talk a little bit about whether your career goals, ideas, aspirations changed since when you applied. We can start with Dan.
All right. Hey, everybody. Dan again. So for my extended internship, as I mentioned, I was interested, like a number of us on the call, in product management. And again, I feel grateful for SOM and the overall, the greater Yale University, because I was able to leverage the network to get my my internship and eventually my full-time offer. So I networked with a Yale College grad who was one of the co-founders of the company that I interned at, LegalZoom.com, and kind of really hit it off with him, kind of helped try to articulate my case for creating an internship because the company didn't really do MBA internships for what it were. And spent 2 years, getting that real world experience, which was incredibly valuable. So, again, very grateful to SOM's network as well as the greater Yale University network. Nowadays, I'm at Dow Jones, the publisher of the Wall Street Journal, Barron's, MarketWatch, and a couple other publications as the director of product management for personalization. So making our content more relevant to our readers, but also, with the societal, ensuring that for society, we make sure that we don't propagate echo chambers, filter bubbles, and so forth. So definitely get to pursue kind of the both business and technical side, as well as ensuring on the societal side that we are good stewards of our news.
Great, thank you, Dan. Arpit?
Absolutely. Hey. So I had kind of 2 goals in mind when I thought about how to structure my internship. Like Dan, I wanted to pursue product management, but I also wanted to add a strategic lens to what I was doing. So in fact, my first internship was at Tesla in their product management team. And just like Dan, it was actually a fellow Yale who helped me out. It's actually a Silva scholar who had the internship in the year before me. And I was still connecting with, Yes, Salaka and Sally, both of them were actually there, and I ended up joining Sally's team. And given that she had essentially laid the groundwork with her team as to what the Silva Scholar program was and what Yale could add to that, I think that really helped me in getting the internship. So I did that for 9 months, got my introduction to product management at a large firm, at a growing firm like Tesla. And then I wanted to add a little bit of strategic thinking. So I actually did 2 internships, one in external consulting and one again in internal consulting, where I added that dimension to my thinking. And that's when I decided to come back and try to decide between the 2 paths.
Great, thank you. Mohammed?
Yeah, so coming out of SOM, I was kind of, for my gap year, I was in between kind of 2 options. One, Lucas mentioned, was the kind of consulting track. Second was the opportunity to go back home and work with a company my father had founded just a few years ago, kind of take that bit forward. It was quite an interesting high growth stage. And I remember actually having a session with the CEO and founder of CarMax, who was giving just a session at Yale, and kind of gave me this advice saying, you know, if you have the opportunity to go for a higher level of responsibility, so early on in life, do that. And that's what I kind of went with. So we joined the company there. We were launching our 3rd mega store, so it's one of the largest home retailing or fastest growing home retailing companies in the GCC, or the Middle East here. And so we had just expanded into Saudi Arabia. It was 2015, a time of a lot of change, a lot of growth, and we had just raised some funds as well through a partner who joined us at the company. And it was just a great time to be there. So I joined in, worked, actually joined to implement a project I had worked on in the supply chain course. So we took a course at SOM, which is supply chain management. And there I worked on our final project on something with the company's data, and presented it to the board and said, you know, here's some recommendations, try to apply them. So they said, oh, you think you're so great? Why don't you come and apply them? And that was kind of the challenge we had there. And so we went and I worked on that for a year. That developed into larger roles. By the time I left there, we had developed an entire logistical network covering around 200,000 square meters and around 2 million square feet, processing hundreds of thousands of orders. It was quite an intense operation. At that point, interestingly, I had gone through a stage of burnout as well. I felt that I'd overexhausted myself. I'd done a lot of work, and I felt there were a lot of things missing in my toolkit. And so it was a great year to make a decision to come back to SOM, kind of refresh, get those, get those tools sharpened, those things that I didn't know I worked on, things like human capital development, for example, something that I had drastically underestimated, working in such a large operation with so many people. Analytics, worked at SOM and went through some courses and at Yale College as well to kind of advance myself in analytics. And then I've rejoined the business just the last couple of years as head of strategy. Had started, and one of my biggest projects was taking the operation online. So we launched our Omni store, our online store. Luckily worked on it 6 months before COVID. And so once COVID hit, we had an MVP to launch with. It was a huge stroke of luck. And it's been just a wonderful, wonderful ride since then.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mohammed. Hannah?
Yeah, for sure. So my gap period was definitely went in directions I wasn't expecting. So I started out in consulting. I actually had an offer from Deloitte. I had worked for them for a few months since I did graduate in December. So I was able to go back to Deloitte Consulting and actually got a promotion, which was really nice. So again, sort of skipping the analyst years, which was a big goal of mine. I realized consulting wasn't going to be the right fit for me longer term. And so after the first year, I did actually consider coming back to school, but I still didn't really know what I wanted to do, which, you know, to me, that was like, okay, let me take advantage of a longer gap period and see if I can figure this out. And I got pretty lucky and ended up the sort of serendipity hit, I guess you could say. And I ended up as a vice president and product manager over at Citibank. And just to sort of level set on the level that was a post-MBA role. So I was supposed to have like 7 years of experience in MBA and have completed a 2-year rotational program, none of which I had. Obviously, I think I had 18 months of full-time work experience at that point, but was still able to get the role just because the interview went incredibly well. And I got that interview because of Yale. And so was able to do that for 2 years. My original plan was actually to come back to school after that. So I had done 2 years of product management. I realized I really enjoyed it, but probably wanted to see about other product manager roles in maybe other companies. Although I will point out, again, just another benefit of the Silver Scholar program is I still have an open offer to go back to City whenever I want, which is really nice. So again, great career booster. Was going to come back to school, and then COVID happened. And so I ended up extending by another year and decided to try out some more stuff. So tried out some stuff in the startup world. And the most recent was actually healthcare. So I joined CVS Health on a project basis before I came back to school, and ended up leading the implementation and creation of their nationwide school testing program. So K through 12 schools across the nation currently use a CVS system in order to book tests and get their children tested for in-person learning. And I was the one who built that on the digital side, which was an incredible experience. And then why I came back, part of it was because I did actually want to get a degree. At some point you do need to come back and get that. Yes. But also, yeah, do come back and get the degree. But also, more importantly for me is I had a much better understanding of what I enjoyed and what I did well. And I knew coming back to school, I would be able to take classes both at Yale OSOM as well as other just university colleges that would let me pursue that. And that is absolutely what has happened. So I'm taking a lot of entrepreneurship courses here at Yale. But like my personal interest is I may want to work in China someday. So I'm currently studying Chinese. So 如果有中国人，你可以跟我聊天。You know, so getting the opportunity to do things like that as well. It was the right time. And I will say, I think you do sort of feel when it's the right time for you. And when you have that feeling, you come back, you end up, or at least I have experienced that I have enjoyed the second year immensely. Not that I didn't enjoy the first year, but the second year in particular has been absolutely incredible because I can explore so much of what I'm interested in. And these are things which not only are going to be helpful in any career, I'm also actually making connections with people, both as students, professors, and just general networking with the alumni that are making an enormous difference in my career. And there are some things I'm interviewing for right now that technically shouldn't exist, just because I was able to connect with the right people, and they were like, you know, let's have a conversation, see what we can do. And that's what a school like Yale can offer. And I feel like very few schools even consider things like that, and very few, even less schools can actually accomplish it.
Great, thank you, Hannah. Lucas, and I know you briefly touched on that, but I don't know if you wanted to add something to that.
Sure. I had also a bit of a COVID chaos. After the first year, I was supposed to work with for the UN with startups in East Africa. Then COVID came and they literally just shut down their office, like communication just stopped from one day to another. And then I actually ended up going back to Germany. And well, that was the first experience of, okay, the Yale name works abroad as well. So it was just very easy to get in conversation with people. And I ended up co-founding a fintech startup, but in the philanthropy area. So I guess interdisciplinary again. But basically we are building a platform that can both transfer millions of dollars to the UN as well as do impact investing. So it can basically cover everything that a large foundation could do, just that even with a fairly small amount of capital, you can do all of that. And we had our first major financing round. There are now rounds, depending on how you want to count, about 15 people. Yeah, so I'm working on that. And it's very obvious that I could not have done that if I would not have been in the MBA before. And I think for two reasons. One is indeed the brand. Like my co-founders are all 20, 30, 40 years older than me. I do not think they would have taken me seriously whatsoever, without any kind of business background or the name Yale on it, to be honest. And the second thing is, and that's for me the killer feature of the Silva Scholar program, when I think back to pre-MBA times, I tended to be very intimidated by people from industries where I felt like I don't understand them well. It's language, it's like just names of frameworks that are being thrown around. What does it even mean if someone says I modeled something? That is something I never understood before. Like what is that? And I did econ, right? It's like okay, what is okay? Anyway, and what the Silva Scholar program allowed me to do is, well, you do homework with people who are a couple years down the line in their careers in different industries, and you suddenly understand what do they mean if they throw around those names. I mean, most often it means, okay, well, that's just some lingo, some language barriers that those industries build up. So the people and the sectors I now need to interact with, I'm just much more relaxed about them. And I feel like, okay, at least I have some rough understanding of what they're talking about and what's going on in these industries. And that's an incredible confidence booster. So yeah, I think for me, that's, besides of course, like many friends, networks, etc. But that's the thing where every day I feel like, oh, that was really, really helpful.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, Ashna?
Yeah, absolutely. So came in 2016, as I mentioned, I was a mechanical engineer during undergrad. And during that time I was focusing on energy. So I was doing battery storage research. So knew I wanted to do something in the space within renewables in particular. Came in and realized that right across the street from SOM was FES, which is now I think called the School of the Environment.
Yes.
And has one of the largest dual degree programs with SOM, and just an amazing array of cross-listed courses for renewable energy finance, and generally just to learn about power markets and learn about energy. And so in my first year, focused my curriculum on doing energy and energy finance. Ended up with an internship at Barclays in their investment banking division in New York. Unfortunately, instead of putting me in an energy or power group, they put me in financial institutions. Which was a great learning experience nonetheless. Ended up getting a return offer, but because it wasn't kind of energy focused and I knew I wanted to do that, ended up leveraging the offer to basically cold email every Yale alum, that I could find on LinkedIn. And thankfully, some of them were receptive. One responded, got me into the office, for 4 hours to meet with the team, and on a Friday, and on Monday I had an offer for my extended internship here. So the Yale network works, and you just need someone to take a bet on you. So incredibly grateful to him. Shout out to Mehul, but he completely took a bet on me, and so worked there for a year, and then knew that I really love my job, so knew that that's what I wanted to be doing, and decided to come back after my first year and kind of double down on doing energy investments, and so just kind of focused my search in that area. And during the year also kind of started building up my skill set on other parts of finance, right? So took classes in fixed income, speculation and hedging in financial markets, all of which again just was very, very complementary to what I'd done in engineering, but also what I'd done in my extended internship year. And then have been at New Energy Capital since I graduated in 2019, which is a private equity firm that invests in renewable energy assets and companies all across North America. Been here for about 2.5 years. Absolutely love it. And want to be an energy investor for life. I know that sounds ridiculous given I'm 27 years old, but really, really love what I do. And I think it's a super interesting market, especially, energy transition, of course, again, has become one of those buzzwords, but, it is very well underway. And it's a very dynamic and sort of high growth market to be in. And so, super excited, to be doing this. And I have to say, the one thing that really, really sort of helped me was just being shameless about emailing people. Have no pride, reach out to anyone and everyone you can leverage. You would be surprised at how willing Yale SOM alums are to help. And I try to pay it forward as well, because I know that people helped me when they had no incentive to do so. And so anytime an SOM person is reaching out to me, whether it's even a warm introduction through someone I know already, or if it's somebody I have, we have nothing in common. We have maybe the Yale connection, but that's about it. I'll still talk to them because they're interested in the industry, and I try to pay it forward. And so, yeah, reach out to people. You'd be surprised at how warm and welcoming they are.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ashna. You kind of preempted my last question. We're running out of time. So my last question was, do you have any words of wisdom, any advice that you can impart on our audience members? So maybe if everyone can just quickly say something about what you wish you knew when you were applying to the Silva Scholars Program, or if you can give some advice to students entering the program, what they should be thinking about, or as they're specifically considering the Silva Scholars Program at the Yale School of Management, anything you just kind of want to say quickly to them about what they should be thinking about, yeah, like who would like to start?
Can I actually just kick it off? I'll just
Sure.
end. Honestly, Yale will only be able to help you to the extent that you're willing to help yourself. I think to me, I wish I'd known that coming in, but also like that is just like one of my biggest takeaways. You've got to, you'll get out of it what you put into it. And so the resources are there. You've got to learn how to leverage it, and you've got to hustle. So don't come in expecting that, a job will be offered to you on a platter. I mean, it could happen. If it didn't happen to me, but yeah, be willing to help yourself. Is what I would say.
Yeah, great.
Maria, I'd love to follow up on that, because I absolutely love Ashna, as everyone knows, and so completely agree. I think the other thing, and this is a genuine regret I have in my first year. So I came in my first year and I already had a consulting offer, which in some ways is great, because it's like, you're done. But I regret that, to be honest with you, because I didn't take the time to explore like I'm doing now in the second year. Luckily, my gap period sort of gave me the time to think and to reflect and realize I wanted to do that. So I think that the stress I would take is that you can definitely come into this program and try to pursue a traditional path. You can definitely do that. I think it's such a waste, though. I think that this program, if you are willing to do something different and do something unusual, the accomplishments that some of the alumni from this program have done are frankly astounding. I won't obviously name any names, but I know of alumni who are running huge companies right now after just a few years. I know of alumni who are running hedge funds with an enormous amount of assets. I know of alumni who have actually, again, won't name any names. I know of an alumni who joined what turned out to be a unicorn startup as like employee number 5 or something like that. I don't even know what number, but just there have been incredible outcomes from this program. And if you look at how those people got there, it was not by following the crowd. It was by doing something different. And it can definitely make you uncomfortable. And I'm not going to say it's easy. It's definitely not the easiest thing, but the end result is that you can find your place. You can find yourself in a place that you didn't even know was an option until you got here. And regardless of how you want to judge that, whether it be just your own happiness, whether it be your rank, whether it be your career, or whether it be purely economic and financial, like how much money are you making, you're going to win pretty much on all fronts if you're willing to take the road less traveled. And I think this program lends itself incredibly well to something like that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people at this point will be thinking about, their own story and what they want to bring out when they submit their application. And a lot of times I get asked the question, what's the right background? I think I would say you really need to take the time to think about on yourself, what's your unique story and what part do you want to pursue? Especially if you look at this call, I don't think there are many common threads as well. And I think the Yale School of Management has given enough a priority to the Silva Scholars Program for them to individually look at each application. I don't think they look at it through a fixed set of lens. So I would just say, be yourself, don't try to be anyone else, and defend who you are strongly. And I think that will speak very well when the application committee looks at you.
Perfect, thank you. Mohammed?
I think Ashna, Hannah, and Arpit did a really good job of giving some of the most important advice. And I'd really like to encourage what they said. At the same time, I'd just say that if you're considering this program, the one thing I wish I would have known, although I'm not sure how different it would have made to my decision, is that how big of an impact this program has made on my life. How much more confident, how much more capable I've become since joining this program. And I have been, and I feel maybe it's been touched on a bit as well, is that I have been for the longest time one of the youngest people in the room. And I continue to be one of the youngest people in the room. And it's something extremely exceptional. Another thing as well is that it was a bit underestimated how you would create this program. You'd kind of overlap with 4 different classes at SOM. And that was something that I wasn't really expecting. So I've got great friends from my first year, wonderful friends I'm still in touch with on a daily basis. And there were some second years there as well. And as well, when I came back, the second years of that year took me in with open arms and great friends that I still have great relationships with. So it's one that even broadens your horizons or exposure to some of the best people in the world, to be honest. And so if you are considering this program, if any of what we've said today sounds interesting, go for it. Be yourself, as Arpit said, just be yourself, go for it. Don't try to fit into a mold of some sort. This program isn't made for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Lucas.
Yeah, I don't think I have that much. I just very much agree with Ashna and Hannah. And I think, well, it sounds a bit like it would be clashing with another recommendation people often give, and that is sort of have a very clear idea of why you entered the MBA program. And so that's something, and I think that's actually right. It's good to have an hypothesis of why you want to go into the MBA program, but it's very often made in a way that, I want this or that consulting job or this or that finance job. And that then closes your mind a bit. And I think I think I did it a bit, but not enough during my application, was to actually just really reflect on what is my actual motivation for this in terms of the emotional motivation. What do I know now about what things make me happy in my work, that motivate me, that drive me, etc. And what is it that I can take away from the MBA program to go into jobs that I think right now fulfill that. But this opinion of what jobs might fulfill that might change because you will learn about new ones, but focus a bit more on where you're coming from than the exact job definition where you want to go to, I think is very helpful. And you're still going to feel regret. I constantly hear about things that people did in their first year where I think, what, that was possible? And there was this amazing professor around. Why did I not hear about that? So yeah, it's hard to make use of all of it. And you don't have to, but yeah.
Absolutely. Dan, you get the last word.
Thanks. Gosh, I just say that, leverage this opportunity as a bit of a forcing function to try to take stock of what really matters most to you. I think there are a few opportunities where, you will be as intentional as in this time when you're, applying to graduate schools, to understand and try to diagnose, again, what matters most, what are you trying to optimize for? And it's okay, as some of the other folks have said, it's okay if you don't know everything. But, I think trying to place strategic bets in where you want to kind of, again, optimize or what you want to explore is I think a exercise, whether you decide to matriculate or not, hopefully you do, because we would love you in the program. I think, it's always a useful exercise to periodically do. And I think, going through the application process is an exceptional opportunity to kind of, again, take stock and think what matters most and what do you want to, like, what's your, 1, 3, and 5 year goals.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Dan. So we can end on that note. I want to thank all of you for joining me today to share your experiences. Everybody will get the recording of this event, and we hope you stay in touch, and I hope to see your applications in the future, and hopefully see you in the class at Yale SOM. So thank you once again. We wish you all the best, and hopefully we'll be in touch. Bye everyone, and thank you.
Bye, thank you.